Hi, I'm Supervisor Don Knabe. I'm pleased to welcome you back to another episode of Dialed In. As you've heard me say on this show many times, the County of Los Angeles is the ultimate safety net for more than 10 million residents living across 88 cities and over 140 unincorporated communities. Pick a letter from A to Z, and there's a service the county provides to our residents. Today, we're going to focus on the letter A, and we're going to talk about animals and agriculture, from dogs and cats to insects and reptiles. Los Angeles County is home to creatures and critters of all sizes. So whether it's helping you find a new family pet or protecting your family from dangerous animals, that's where the county comes in. This month, I'm pleased to welcome our Director of Animal Care and Control, our Agricultural Commissioner, who also serves as our Director of Weights and Measures, and I'm also pleased to welcome the President of a local nonprofit that is partnering with our Sheriff's Department to use some of our furry friends to help our most vulnerable. I hope you will enjoy the show.
Maybe he's really focused.
Maybe he likes spinning the wheels.
Maybe he just loves trucks.
Preoccupation with objects is one early sign of autism. Learn the others today.
You!
No! Your fault.
My fault?
Your fault.
You're right.
What?
It's my fault.
What do you mean your fault?
You're right, it's my fault. Maybe both of us?
Maybe just you.
Just the two of us. We can make it if we try.
Hi. Hi.
Welcome back to Dialed In. My first guest today is Marcia Mayeda, Director of the Los Angeles County Department of Animal Care and Control. Before joining the department, Marcia worked as a Director of Community Outreach for the Humane Society of Santa Clara. Now she leads one of the largest animal control agencies in the entire country. Marcia, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So, Animal Care and Control, long name. Tell us a little bit about the history of the department.
Well, the department was formed in the 1930s when the state had an epidemic of rabies, and it was very important to get a department going that could protect the public from this fatal disease. So the department started then and has gradually just grown over time as the needs and the demands have grown.
So sort of, what are some of the roles and responsibilities? You know, we've got rabies now, we know about all that, but what are some of the roles and responsibilities today?
Today we perform a very important public safety role in protecting the public from dangerous and vicious animals. We provide emergency response assistance, like today when there's fires going. We provide emergency sheltering and evacuation for people's pets. We also provide a very strong animal cruelty investigations program to assist animals, of course, that are being mistreated, and we operate animal care centers where lost animals can be cared for.
How many animal care centers do we have?
We have 6 animal care centers. We're about to open our 7th in Palmdale.
So it's just about cats and dogs, and you talked about horses. What other kinds of animals are you involved with?
We get everything. We get chickens, ducks, geese, goats, sheep. We've had a camel, we had a white cobra, all sorts of other snakes, birds like parrots. It's always interesting.
So at any given time, how many animals do you have under your control, and what's the size of your department?
Well, during the busy summer months when we're at our largest capacity, it'll be probably close to 3,000 animals among our 6 animal care centers. We have a staff of almost 450 people and about 1,300 volunteers, which we are very, very grateful for. They do a tremendous job assisting us.
So 1,500 volunteers, did you say?
Yes.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes, yes. We had some very compassionate people.
Very, very compassionate,
Yes,
passionate folks about it.
absolutely.
Speaking of passion, every once in a while the issue of feral cats comes before the Board of Supervisors. I've had the issue in my district at a particular hospital. What's the department's position on feral cats?
Well, you know, feral cats are really the largest challenge that animal care and control agencies are facing today, and that's the most common animal euthanized in our shelters, because once we get one in, it's really not an adoptable animal. People don't adopt them to be pets, of course. So what we do try to do is really emphasize spaying and neutering for cats in the community so we can reduce the number of feral cats being born that would ultimately be brought to the shelter. We encourage people to keep their cats inside, certainly spay and neuter every cat that they have and microchip. So if the animals do come in, we can identify the owner and reunite the pet with them.
Well, it's a big issue. I mean, obviously a very emotional issue with some folks too. And there seems to be a tendency that we're trying to do all the right things to keep them out of being a feral cat, yet people continue to feed them in certain areas.
Right.
Is that a responsibility of the department to sort of assist as a patrol agency of some sort on these feral cat? I mean, what happens in that situation?
Well, we don't patrol for cats because you really can't capture them. So if they're trapped, they can be brought to us, and that's how we usually get the cats. We do provide low-cost spay-neuter services for people who are trying to reduce a population in their community and do the responsible thing, and we'll provide the low-cost spay-neuter services for them. But we don't, it really depends on the area too, because if they're having a negative impact on wildlife, especially any endangered species, it's a problem. Or if there's a colony located next to a vulnerable population like a child care center or hospital or medical centers where the animals could be spreading disease to people that are served there, that's a problem as well. And public health will get involved in those cases.
Right, that's the problem we've run into out at Rancho. Mm-hmm. So lots of communities and cities are now moving towards the 100% no-kill. Is that a realistic goal here in Los Angeles County?
I think it's a misleading term, and a lot of agencies are really questioning the proper use of that term. There really isn't a set definition, and the problem with that is when you're an open door shelter like ours is, we take in any animal that's brought to us. So that includes vicious, dangerous, very sick, very injured. Those are animals that cannot be placed either for the animal's own well-being or the public safety. So there's going to be euthanasia. We have more than an 82% adoption rate of dogs right now. So we're doing very, very well. However, ideally, the only animals that would be coming in would be those that are aggressive or very injured, and all the others would have homes and be safe. So in that situation, your euthanasia percentage would actually be quite high because there's no other options for those animals. We're not there yet, and certainly there's still a lot of animals to find homes for, and we're doing remarkably well with our partners. But I think it's a charged term that can be misleading to members of the public who don't understand all the nuances involved.
I totally agree there. So let's on the flip side of that. So let's say a family's interested in adopting a pet. Mm-hmm. What's the process they need to go through to bring home a furry friend?
Well, we love to see people come to adopt from us, and they can start by going to our website. We feature all of our animals on our website with the photographs and some information about them. They can even search by breed and get alerts when a breed they're looking for comes in. Other than that, they can come to our animal care centers. We're open 7 days a week. All our hours and locations are on our website.
And what is the website?
It's www.lacountyανimals.gov. Yeah, and we hope that they come and they can look at all the animals, talk to our staff and volunteers to get an understanding about each animal's personality and which one might be suitable for them.
So when we have county programs throughout the district, I know your folks have brought animals out as well. They have sort of like adoption days, mm-hmm. For animals and things like that. So they can visually look at it on the web, but they can physically come see it too as well.
Right.
And you have a complete inventory. Let's say they went to Downey and there's an animal someplace else that can be sent to that. Is that how it works? Or?
Yeah. Well, they could come look at what's at Downey. If they don't find an animal there, they can go to one of our other animal shelters, or again, go on our website and see what might be available at other animal shelters, and that could save them some driving time. I would also add that cats are free. We've received a grant from the ASPCA that covers the cost of cat adoptions because we're trying so hard to get as many cats out as possible. So we encourage people, if they're looking for a cat, to come on down. That's spayed and neutered, microchipped, vaccinated, free.
Ready to roll.
Yeah.
Ready for a loving home.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
Good family animals and things like that. So Marcia Mayeda, our Director of Animal Care and Control, with us today, and we thank you for all that you do and your staff does. It's a big job, 10 million residents, 4,000 square miles. There's a lot of animals, critters, and friends out there. But we would encourage all of you, right, to if you need a pet or want a pet, to be a part of that and to make the effort to join us in Los Angeles County Animal Care and Control. Go on the website. We thank you again for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Listen to me. I am captain of the track team. And if I'm late,
she doesn't really think she's going to get out of here, does she?
Be nice. She's new.
Hello, is anyone there? Ugh!
Wow. Even from our standards, you look awful.
Oh, sweetie, what happened?
Me? My friend Becky got to talk to this super cute boy, and I tried to act like I wasn't jealous, but I so totally was. And then out of nowhere, this concrete barrier just popped up. Maybe it was a semi.
You mean you were driving?
Yeah. I mean, I know the whole eyes on the road thing, but this was a super important text. Maybe you have to know, Becky.
Texting? Great.
But it was only like 5 seconds, and I'm a really, really fast texter, so it wasn't even a big deal. Actually, has she texted me back yet? Wow, I get like no bars in this place. I wonder if they have Wi-Fi here.
Welcome back to Dialed In. My next guest is Kurt Florin, our Agricultural Commissioner, who also serves as our Director of Weights and Measures. He began his career in the field of agriculture working for the county back in 1981 and has led the department since 2005. Thanks for joining me today, Kurt.
Appreciate being here.
It's a long title, agriculture, weights and measures. Maybe you could, a lot of our viewers are unfamiliar with the fact that the county gets involved in these kind of things, but maybe what does the department encompass?
That's a long list.
Yeah.
On the agricultural side, if we look at our Environmental Protection Bureau, principally, the job there is pesticide use enforcement, both on the structural side as well as the agricultural side, making sure they're used safely both for workers and for the public. That's where we have our exotic pest detection program. Any given time we have 30 to 50,000 traps throughout the county looking for exotic pests that are coming in.
What's an exotic pest?
Mediterranean fruit fly is kind of the famous one, but Oriental fruit fly, Mexican fruit fly, Japanese beetle, gypsy moth, all these can be devastating to our urban forests, but as well as agriculture. So we're the first line of defense in finding them quickly and eradicating them before they can spread. But within there, we also have our apiary program. Bees are very important. Some fear them, but they serve a very important purpose. A lot of crops are entirely dependent upon them, so we monitor and regulate the beekeepers.
What's an example of a crop that's dependent upon a bee?
Almonds. Almonds are 100% dependent upon bee pollination, but this is true across a lot of the leafy greens, our salads, a whole host of fruits and vegetables that are dependent upon bee populations for doing.
So it's pretty exotic kind of work. I mean, you have to be well trained and educated in very specific areas, then I would imagine.
It is. We have an amazing array of staff, most of whom are biologists and specializing in different fields, so it takes an awful lot of knowledge. But that's just one bureau. Our Weed Hazard Pest Management Bureau is responsible for weed abatement on unimproved properties. We monitor every year about 25,000 vacant lots and making sure people are keeping their weeds down.
Particularly in fire, as I would imagine.
Exactly. It's really, it originated back when we had a lot of agriculture and there was concern about invasive weeds, but today it's really about fire suppression. So each year, as I say, we're monitoring tens of thousands of properties, and we have to go in and clear about 4,000 to 5,000 each year. Then we also do work in pest management. A lot of folks wouldn't know that we control vertebrate pests, a lot of the rodents and vermin, and it's not just about health. We do a tremendous amount of work for the Department of Public Works in maintaining their flood control districts. Burrowing rodents can weaken the levees, the walls of our flood control channels, and it's very important work there. Our Pest Exclusion Produce Quality Bureau, that's too long to get into everything, but the key programs are pest exclusion. California has the biggest agricultural production in the whole United States. We feed much of the world. With our seaports and our airports, we kind of are the conduit for an awful lot of invasive pests. So we work in inspecting incoming shipments of produce and plants to make sure.
You use dogs for that. You have
detector dogs.
Detector dogs, yes.
Yes, we're very excited about that. We've began that program about 5 years ago, got our first dog. We're up to 2, and we have just received a third dog trained by USDA. And what they do is they spend time in parcel facilities like FedEx, UPS.
At the ports? Are you used at the ports too?
Well, USDA has responsibility for international shipments, but we are there responsible for all domestic shipments, and that includes Hawaii and shipments from other contiguous states as well as U.S. territories.
And I know you do a lot, and we have a limited amount of time, but there's another issue, obviously, that's very big right now in the Southern California area, and that's the issue of coyotes.
True.
In various communities. The natural thing would be for people to think that that comes under the Department of Animal Care and Control.
Right.
But that's under your shop. Maybe you can sort of let the public know what your role is in coyote management.
Yeah, the link kind of goes back to when there was an awful lot of agriculture, and including livestock, and predators would come in and attack livestock. We don't have much of a livestock industry here anymore, but about 35 years ago we were assigned responsibility for dealing with bold urban coyotes. These are those that have become very comfortable around humans. Unfortunately, they're attracted by those of us who aren't good about covering our trash, leaving pet food out, not picking up fallen fruit. Coyotes take advantage of any food source, and there's an explosion of the population around populated areas. So what we do is we do go in and do direct suppression of specific animals that have shown themselves to be bold, urban, threatening coyotes.
Very aggressive.
Very aggressive. But really what it comes down to is we do an awful lot of work with cities, any entities that request, to provide education on how to discourage coyotes from coming into populated areas. And it really has to do with what we call cultural controls, removing those food sources. When they see coyotes, we encourage them not to smile and try to get them to approach, but in fact to wave their arms, yell at them, scare them, and reinstill that fear of humans. They're here, they've always been here. Coyotes are always going to be around us. We do have to coexist with them, but it's really about educating folks on how to discourage their presence.
I want to spend a few minutes, another area that touches the life of every resident of Los Angeles County each and every day, and anybody walks through a door, and that's the Department of Weights and Measures.
Correct.
And again, it's an area that most of our residents don't have any idea whether, I think you do scanners, whether it's a gallon of gas, you check all those, maybe some of the responsibilities under Weights and Measures.
Yeah, we're recognized, I think, for gas pumps and scales at grocery stores, but it goes so far beyond that. Any weighing and measuring device that's used commercially, we're responsible for making sure that it's accurate and it's used legally, and that ranges from jewelry scales up to truck scales. On the meter side, it isn't just retail
and
gas
laundries
pumps.
On the weight scales and things like that, right?
Anything that's used to base a charge, but also packaged goods. Everything you buy has a quantity statement, whether it's a 40-foot hose or a 7-ounce bag of potato chips or a 50-pound bag of concrete. We are responsible for making sure all of those are properly labeled and actually contain what they state they contain. We do a lot of undercover work posing as customers, making sure people aren't cheating over scales. And yes, on the scanner side, I'm proud to say we have the largest and most active scanner price accuracy enforcement program in the United States. 17 inspectors out full-time going through the stores that all of our residents visit every week and making sure they're not overcharging.
So as we close this out, where can the viewers go to learn more about the Agricultural Commission as well as Weights and Measures? What is your webpage?
We would love for them to come to our webpage. It's ACWM for Ag Commissioner Weights and Measures, acwm.lacounty.gov. Or they can call our number at any time, 626-575-5471. And we'd be happy to answer any questions they have.
Kurt Florin, our Agriculture Commissioner and Director of Weights and Measures, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you being here. We'll be right back.
Places, everybody.
Light check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Everything looks good on our end.
And lights.
Come alive with the forest. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
All God's children, we got to come together and share the good feeling. 'Cause nothing ever gonna make this world better if we don't start believing that love really, really, really is the answer. Everybody join hands 'cause it's time now. Spread the just love each other,
we just love each other,
and lift up one another, shine a light from every heart, now.
We got to
spread the love all over the world. We've got to spread the love.
Welcome back to Dial In. My last guests are Captain Merrill Ladenheim of our Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and Krystal Emery, director and founder of Pet Prescription Team. The Pet Prescription Team and Los Angeles Regional Human Trafficking Task Force recently partnered on a new initiative to help some of our most vulnerable recover from the traumas that they've suffered. And joining them today is a special guest, and that's Diggity. Thank you all for being here. So let's start with Krystal. So how did the idea come up for Pet Prescription Team?
I was a marriage and family therapist, and I used a dog in my practice. And because of that, and I saw the benefits of having a dog where people could pet and talk to versus just talking to me, when I retired, I started the Pet Prescription Team.
So what kinds of things that you do now with the dogs?
We go into hospitals, but we use our dogs with Pet Prescription Team a lot differently in that we look for unique ways to use therapy dogs that might not ever have been used before. And we do a brain injury program where the kids use the dogs to go over agility equipment, and we use the dogs also in rehab where people, Vietnam vets, have been injured and they're learning to walk again. They've had brain injuries, brain traumas. So we use our dogs a little different than the normal pet therapy dog.
So somebody like Diggity, obviously he didn't become a therapy dog at birth, so they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, so how old was Diggity when you...
Well, we got Diggity when he was 2.
Mm-hmm.
He was basically a return dog from a breeder that had given their dog to someone and they just didn't have the time for him. And so we took him on primarily at first just to foster him. And being that I train dogs, I took him out into a facility and I found that he was basically a natural, even temperament, just kick back, laid back personality. And therefore I ended up keeping him. I had an older therapy dog that was retiring and I use him now.
Well, Captain, we have set up this human trafficking task force that you're an active part of or are in charge of its operation. And now, as I understand it, we are now using dogs like Diggity to be part of that recovery period with these. As you and I know, it's probably the most horrific crime that I've been involved in my political career. So what are some of the things that you're doing as it relates to the dogs and these vulnerable victims that we have to deal with?
Well, as part of the task force, we have a victim-centered approach in the recovery of our kids. One of the things we've experienced are these kids very hesitant to open up to law enforcement. Their whole career they've had differences with law enforcement, and so we approach it in a different way. It's really a paradigm shift with their contact with law enforcement. So we bring them into a soft room, a living room style setting for an interview, and then we brought the dog in. Dog's non-judgmental, breaks down barriers, and we found previous studies that showed tremendous trust building before a detective even comes in contact with our victim once a young victim has experienced a therapy dog.
So to a non-dog trainer like yourself, to a dog trainer like yourself, what are some of the benefits that therapy dogs bring to these victims?
Well, we've worked a lot in the mental wards, and we can go into a ward that is just chaotic, and the dogs come in, and the loud screaming and hitting on walls begins to slowly dissipate just with the presence of the dogs.
Just with the presence?
Just with the presence of the dogs. Then they will all sit down and we'll have our dogs in the center of that ward. They'll come over and begin petting the dogs, and the loud screaming and just violent attitude that many of them had just dissipates with the dog's presence. By the time we leave, it's just quiet. It's like a normal ward.
So in the soft rooms, what experience have we had there?
So we had our first deployment of the dog with a young female victim. who disclosed to a therapist that she had been commercially sexually exploited. She did not want to have contact or disclose to the police. The detective contacted Pet Prescriptions. We brought the dog in, and it was an immediate hit. Immediately, she interacted with the dog for about an hour, completely broke down the barriers we had with traditional law enforcement and victim contacts under these circumstances. As a matter of fact, during the interview, she requested the dog stay with her. We had a successful interview. Without that dog, we're sure that she would not have disclosed.
And you know, with our new protocol, particularly our dedicated courtrooms to dealing with these victims where we have all the wraparound services, I wonder at some point if a dog won't be part of that team and dealing with the victims, particularly to allow them to make that choice at that moment in time to get out of that lifestyle. Because once you're outed, we know that means death to them. So it's a very traumatic situation that the dogs might even have a youthful case in the courtroom and that dedicated courtroom with these victims.
Yes, and the expansion of this program is underway. The district attorney's office is in the process of obtaining a therapy dog program as well.
So where can our viewers go if they want to get involved with your program, either become a volunteer or a trainer or a therapist?
Well, they can go online to petprescriptionteam.com, and it just kind of gives an outline of what your dog needs to know. They need basic sit down, stay, and come before they come to us. Then we'll take them through an eight-week course, and at that time we'll either certify the dog or continue training them. And then we insure that dog and handler out on their visitations, and we provide them the facilities for them to visit at as well.
So it's like an 8-week training process. Mm-hmm. Is there, I mean, I don't want to go back to old dog, new tricks, but I mean, is there a particularly good age to start?
Yes, there is. You know, the dog must be a year of age before they even start training with us. And like I said, not every dog progresses. It's like kids. They don't progress some as quickly as others, but our organization, why we started it, is that we do provide the training, and we're willing to stick in there because only 40% is the dog, 60% is the volunteer. You got to have the heart for the people. And so some of our training is based on teaching the people about reaching out to the community.
Well, it's so important. I mean, particularly, I mean, I'm just, obviously, of my involvement in the child sex trafficking issue, to see something like this and knowing that it can make a huge difference, and knowing and meeting with many of the victims that, like I have, both the survivors and those in the early stages, you know, just how vulnerable they are. And if something like this can break down a barrier for them to give some peace and calm, it's extremely important. So I thank both of you. Krystal, I thank you for Pet Prescriptions, and Captain for your work on the whole human trafficking issue, not just sex trafficking. It's a big deal. It's a very important issue with a very vulnerable part of our society. So thank you to both. And thank you all. We'll be right back.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
Thank you again for tuning in to Dialed In. I want to thank my guests today, Marcia Mayeda, Kurt Florin, Captain Merrill Ladenheim, Krystal Emery, and our four-legged friend Diggity for taking the time to join us today. Whether it's adopting a new family pet, sniffing out exotic or potentially dangerous pests, or just helping a victim of human trafficking find a small moment of peace and calm, animals play a very major part in how the County of Los Angeles serves its 10 million residents. Thank you again for tuning in to Dialed In. We'll be back next month with an all-new show.
What do you think it would be like to teach? Chances are, you have no idea. Teachers today are breaking down obstacles, finding innovative ways to instill old lessons, proving that greatness can be found in everyday places, and that you don't need to be famous to be unforgettable. That's what it's like to teach.